Today with the weather, with the wind, it was difficult to find a good wind.
Yeah, it was difficult out there. The wind was very light. There was a little bit of a chance for a race early on, around 10 o'clock, but they never quite filled in across the course, and then the wind died, and there was a little bit more wind that sort of came off the coast, but never made it across the course, so never quite enough wind for a race.
What was the feedback of the sailors on the boat? They were disappointed?
I'm sure they're disappointed. I haven't actually talked to them, but yeah, I'm sure they weren't happy to be out there in the rain and no racing. They really wanted the race. So, yeah.
What are the forecasts for the next race on Wednesday?
Well, it's supposed to get windy. Whether we'll race or not, we'll have to wait until the day. But it's supposed to get pretty windy the next couple of days, so we'll see.
You think it's typical of Valencia and the region of Valencia, this sort of lack of wind?
Well, it's this time of year, it's very up and down. You know, some days you get really light wind, some days you get really too much wind. It's hard to find a day where you have the right wind. So it's a difficult time of year in Valencia.
Thank you.
How much of an issue with there being a lot more wind for the next 2 days? How much of an issue is it as far as handling the boat on and off the shore and rigging it?
Well, it's mostly a safety issue. If it gets too windy, it's just the boats aren't designed for winds over 20 knots. And, it can be a dangerous issue. At this point, it's too early to call how windy it's going to be in the coming days. It's just going to be windy. It's offshore wind.
I was thinking more about stepping the mast and rigging the boat.
We'll advise the team and look if the wind starts getting up more than 30, 35 knots, then they might have to consider taking the mast down.
The call was correct to stop the block to race?
Oh yeah, I mean, at one point it was right around 10 o'clock where the wind was pretty good. Not quite at the start line. The start boat was never had any wind, and so it wasn't really a chance to go off a good race. So. Close, but not quite.
Was there an area where you could race?
Get a race off here?
Is there
a worry you might not even be able to get a race off?
I will get a race off eventually. Yeah. I mean, it
seems quite difficult.
Might have to wait a while to get the right wind conditions so that you actually can have a fair race. But
was there any point out there? This is such a big course. I mean, was there any point in there where you could have maybe raced, or is it? It was just the write-off.
No, at 10 o'clock there was a nice southerly wind in the southern part of the course, which did look like it was going to be a chance for a race. But it never made it to the start boat, so they were always down 2 knots, and they never made it out there. And then the wind sort of weakened a little bit. It never really came back in. So it was close, but yeah, it was never really good enough conditions for a race.
Do you think the race officials are being very careful about racing when they can race, just because it's such a controversial issue, the wind?
I think Harold is actually very good about picking and trying to have a fair race, so he's trying to pick the conditions where the race will be fair, with good wind conditions, and they don't want a crapshoot type of thing, too much wind variability. So yeah, so I think he's doing a good job so far. It's a good race.
How's it looking for Wednesday?
Windy. It's strong. The front comes through tonight, and then it's supposed to clear up, but it's supposed to be fairly strong winds. So I'm not going to forecast for Wednesday yet, but it's pretty strong winds right now.
Not raceable, so
it's possible race. Possible race.
What about tomorrow?
That's also windy tomorrow. So
same sort of thing as Wednesday, or
yeah, similar. Yeah, maybe a little bit windier tomorrow than Wednesday. But
what do you think about the sea state on Wednesday? Is the direction going to give us a big sea?
Well, there's a possibility that the wind, if it comes around too much to the north, there'll be a little bit of swell coming down, and so that is another concern on Wednesday. But as I say, that's 2 days out.
How possible is it to get a 20-mile course without 30 or so?
Well, you have to view this as a little bit of a quasi-offshore race because it's so big and they're off course. So you're never going to get a perfect, like a 5 nautical mile course, the same wind conditions. But you go for something, and we've had some test races out there, practice races last week that were actually pretty good. I mean, there was some variability, but you always get that even in 5 nautical mile courses. So that's something the sailors have to deal with.
It's quite protestable, though, isn't it?
There's always potential for, especially this time around. Yeah, but I think if they get out and get decent wind conditions, they should be able to get a good race in.
Is the weather one of the few things that both teams can agree on, generally?
I think if you talk to 2 meteorologists, you never agree on anything.
What was the main problem? It was that the wind was too light, or changing?
It was too light, really. The wind was really too light for a race. I mean, you really want something that's a little bit more stable and consistent. we almost had that at the beginning of the race, but the start boat, it's only 2 knots and it's too fluky. We're going to get a race in, so we want something a little bit more steady.
But the direction was always the same?
At the start boat, it was because 2 knots. It's really hard to get a good consistent direction. But the rest of the race course was good. Yeah.
So you think the race committee had the right to not give the stars?
In the conditions they had, I think that it would have been difficult to have a race in the conditions they had.